So, this is the April Reads list here. This is 11 books that I read in the month of April. First one is going to be Only Words by Catherine McKinnon, and this is about how pornography should be illegal because it's hate speech. While I don't necessarily agree with every aspect of her arguments in this book, people should read this just to know how to structure an argument and be very persuasive. Catherine McKinnon is a scholar, but her day job, what she made her trade on, was being a lawyer, specifically human rights lawyers specializing in issues concerning women. Lots of interesting things she's done in terms of legislation, but as I said before, even if you don't agree with her position, read this book. It'll give you an idea of how to structure your position. All I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. This was just a nice, fun, lighthearted read. Lighthearted read. My friend Co suggested you do one of these every so often, especially if you're like me and you like to read a lot of hard-hitting nonfiction stuff. Essentially, just thoughts and commentary by a pastor who I think is a Universal Unitarian pastor. The Interlopers, a short story that I bought on my Kindle. This is about two guys who have gone into the woods, part of an old family feud, and want to kill each other. They end up in a situation, though, that for the most part they're going to die, so the bravado wears off and they focus on how they should be working together. I think somebody said it best. The theme of this book is often we come to the emotion of regret when it's far too late. Countering Bioterrorism, the Role of Science and Technology. This is definitely one of what I would call the hard criminology reads. Hard not meaning difficult to ingest, but hard meaning is in that, it's an official type report by an agency, or rather an organization, and it's not designed to entertain or appeal to people like, say, a true crime book is. Nevertheless, very interesting stuff. Stone, a legacy and inspiration for art. If you ever have a question on anything regarding, how does a statue begin, essentially, a stone statue or whatnot, how is it taken from a quarry? What exactly is a real stonemason? This book will answer those questions for you. A beautiful art book, but also very informative as well. Al Capone, a biography. Okay, right away, I'm loving that it was written by a guy whose first name is Luciano. That's just awesome. So, this book actually it takes a more so cultural look at Al Capone through the lens of how he was treated as an Italian American. It spends, I believe, a disproportionate amount of time waxing poetic about the actual trial that got him locked up, kind of making it out to be like it was almost a hate trial or racially motivated. Al Capone, certainly a criminal we know, did a lot of stuff. Of course, we weren't able to get, actual things against him because he was clever. Yeah, he didn't do his own dirty work, and he made sure to be out of Chicago when some of the worst of the violence was actually going on. And certain things were done. Basically, the government pursued him with a lot of zest for tax charges because it was the only thing that would stick. Southern Horrors and Other Writings, the anti-lynching campaign of Ida B. Wells. I could probably do a whole video on Ida B. Wells. I had not actually heard of her in all my studies before until fairly recently. That in and of itself is a problem. So Ida B. Wells was actually a businesswoman, head of a newspaper, and this was a time when women, especially women of color, didn't usually do that sort of thing. So she was a public businesswoman there. You didn't have that. And she decided to use her newspaper as a platform to take on lynching. Her office was ransacked, and she was essentially exiled to the north. And that's where she began a systematic study of lynching, kind of creating what you would consider a rudimentary database, if you want to call it that, of lynching incidences, and also looking for hidden motivations behind lynching. So she takes on misinformation and financial motivations. Uh, it's very interesting. This may be one of the earliest criminological and sociological works on mass violence, and I honestly just picked this book up on a lark. I saw it on a shelf in the criminology section of the library I go to, Halle Library across the street. Detroit, 1967. Well, for those of you who are not students of history, this centers around the events that I believe started on July 23rd, and that is essentially the Detroit riot, which was like a week of destruction. This book is, pretty informative, and, it's an interesting section of history to read about because it was only 1 week. So, it's not like you're going to find a massive 19-piece set of works on the issue. You can find actual individual books on specific incidences that happen, but yeah, one 300-page book can accurately sum up a lot of the events. I might do some follow through on this and read more specifically about it. But Detroit, 1967, you had a population that was congesting. You had a lot of stuff going on, race relations problems with the Detroit Police Department and whatnot. And it made conditions perfect for, mass rioting. Michigan haunts public places, eerie spaces. This was just a fun book here. I'm part of a paranormal research club, and this was hawked at the last meeting. So I said, okay, I'll get it. I'm bored. So I got that on my Kindle there, and I did just a review about this book here. I don't believe in this ghost stuff, but I find going these places can be pretty fun. Now, you do have to turn off the portion of your brain that analyzes history. A lot of the stuff they mention in these books about the history of these places didn't really happen. Childless, this is from the professional library at the place I work at, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services building. I've tried to make it an attempt this year to learn more about their side of things, of course, and they work with couples who are trying to adopt. Side hustles for dummies. This one actually is applicable to my life. I have a buddy who really wants to purchase a house, and he's looking at interesting ways to make some money on the side. And I'm actually going to be meeting up with him hopefully this weekend to go through some stuff. His idea mainly is to do a podcast. I don't really know how viable an idea that is, especially if earning some extra cheddar is your goal. It seems to me that a lot of these podcasts and other such things are, their feast or their famine. You've got, a very tiny sliver of people who gets even $1,000 a month versus the rest of everybody who just gets, nothing.